The Bloodborne Platinum is bloody glorious. Yharnam, a place that both captivated and terrified me in equal measure. A dark place where men become monsters and the blood acts as salvation and damnation. A gloriously grotesque world of a never-ending hunt. Bloodborne had always fascinated me, but not being a FromSoft fan, I felt intimidated by it and reluctant to play it. But as you know, a few years ago I became a trophy hunter, and my sole purpose for doing so was to learn and hone my skills enough so that I feared no game, no platinum adventure. To achieve this goal, I would dedicate my first 99 platinums to gain confidence and skills that would allow me to at least attempt the platinum that scared me so. For my 100th platinum would be none other than the great gothic masterpiece itself, Bloodborne. If I could beat the game and slide that platinum proudly into my trophy cabinet, then I would have achieved my goal and would continue to trophy hunt as my primary gaming passion. If not, then I would bow my head in shame and walk away from trophy hunting forever. Did I succeed? Let's find out. This is my Bloodborne Platinum adventure. So let's go! Not exactly knowing what to expect from the Bloodborne Plat, my first steps were to check a guide, and although its blaring red 8 out of 10 difficulty threatened certain failure, I was resolute in my mission. Neither backing out like a coward or failing like an incompetent child were an option. The blood beckoned me. 20 bronzes, 7 silvos, 6 goldies, standing between me and the platinum trophy. The guide suggested 40-50 hour completion and only one truly missable trophy. But warnings to be careful with killing NPCs. Something I should have taken far more seriously than I did. Not at all easy, but the Platinum Adventure seemed more simple than I was expecting. Despite the need for backup saves to unlock all 3 of the game's endings, the only other thing to be careful about was not consuming certain collectibles before the game's finale. With minimal information, but enough to hopefully avoid multiple playthroughs, it was time to get hunting. Upon loading the game, Bloodborne gently acquainted me to my new world. A cutscene invites me in, spiking my adrenaline as fear began to wash over me as I tried to make sense of the madman in the wheelchair's dialogue. What is a pale blood? Am I the pale blood? Is this a racism thing? Not knowing what any of the jargon in the character creation area meant, I just flew through the choices and quickly turned to the aesthetics. Obviously, how I looked was way more important than whatever blood tinge meant. Right? When I was done, I looked upon my creation and realised I had somehow made a character who looked almost identical to Wesley Wyndham-Pryce, the shamed Watcher from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. When I was done, I was so fucked. Naming myself Agron, my favourite character from the epic Spartacus TV show, I hesitated as the game asked me if I wished to finalise my contract. This was it. No turning back after this point. The mad cripple laughs and I fall back to sleep, only to reawaken in a world more terrifying than anything I could have ever imagined. Yharnam. A rabid, demonic wolf approaches but spontaneously bursts into flames before making contact with me. Ghost white ghouls approach me from all sides, climbing upon me and staring down at me with crooked teeth, and the screen goes black, and I awaken for the final time. The cutscene is over.
Let's go to work.
I have awoken unarmed. Whatever this clinic is, right now it is clearly not a safe place to be. I scurry around finding tidbits of help, the game proving far more generous than I expected with its guidance. Figuring out the basic controls, I'm startled to run across this hairy prick and decided that with no weapon, I'd be better off getting the hell out of there and finding one before taking on any frightful beasts. With seemingly nowhere to go, I baited the big bastard into the open and dared to take him on, weaponless and as delicate as a newborn babe, hoping that if I won, he'd drop some loot to help me move forward. Maybe his bark was worse than his bite. It was not. Despite my valiant efforts, I perished at the claws of the beast. Contrary to what I'd been told about the cost of dying in a FromSoft game, I arrived at the Hunter's Dream, the only safe area in the game. During my stay, I meet the doll and receive my firearm and a sexy hunter axe that extended twice its length for heavy attacks. Invigorated by my new weaponry, I return to Yharnam, feeling strong.
Do we really need weapons for this?
They make me feel all manly.
But that was overconfidence. This beastie was still a big threat and ended my wretched life for a second time. I vowed there would not be a third. Third time was the charm. One shot killing this hairy bitch, I finally walked out of Yusefka's clinic, free to explore Yharnam, just as soon as I get out from behind these tombstones and learn how to open gates. The streets were filled with monsters, so I once again rabbited from danger and acclimatized myself to the city of central Yharnam, feeling my feet, so to speak. But notes of encouragement perked up my spirits. Discovering another lamp, I begin to understand how they work and how I gauge my progress. The lamps are listed on tombstones in the Hunter's Dream, my fast travel to explore Yharnam, using Hunter's Dream as a train station. But just as I started to understand the world around me, I now realized how the game was very slowly leading me into a huge maze filled with all manner of terrors. And so the struggle began. Lost, clueless, and with no idea how to make the gun an effective weapon in combat, I was starting to feel overwhelmed. Then I ran into this huge bastard. I once again returned to the Hunter's Dream, where I finally formally met German, the creepy old cripple. This mysterious old fucker seemed to be my dark Alfred Pennyworth, but far less useful. But he did offer to pimp his doll out to me, so that was nice, I guess. I figured out how to spend my blood echoes, and I bought a brand new pair of trousers because I'm an idiot who didn't think to upgrade my own stats with the in-game currency. Back to central Yharnam, the juggernaut-looking, axe-wielding dickhead that killed me. I tried my luck once more. Twice more. Thrice more. Fuck it, a lot of times more, until my first challenge of the game passed and a bronzer pops in the corner for acquiring a blood gem as a reward. But that well-earned bronze trophy ties me to the game completely. Truly now, there is no turning back. Killing that first mini-boss and popping my first bronze trophy imbued me with confidence and vigour. I pressed on, exploring central Yharnam and collecting blood echoes to improve my stats, enabling me to do more and take more damage. It was time for my first side boss, the Cleric Beast, a huge, screeching abomination born of the blood. A horrifying visage of what I assume was once a good hunter. My first big test. My first Souls boss. Naturally, I died in my first attempt, but in the second I dispatched the beast with relative ease. Confidence growing in a sense that maybe Bloodborne was a little overhyped for its difficulty. I was unaware that I had not only over-leveled, but was still utterly clueless about how to use the pistol effectively. It was a fool's confidence. I had no idea where I was supposed to go next, but there was only one route to follow, and that was leading me straight to the game's first proper boss. The tragic Father Gascoigne. Not from Yharnam, Gascoigne came to the city and joined the church, becoming one of its good hunters. He seemingly retired from hunting when he met a woman and had 2 daughters with her, but the blood had already taken hold of Gascoigne, and he was unable to fight the beast within. Depending on what choices you make in the game, depend on what happens to Gascoigne's girls. In mine, they both perished. Not at my hand, but I still harbour the blame. Before I found the good father, I run into this old bag, Eileen the Crow. She offers a gift and an ominous warning. I take the offering and continue looking for my next prey, the retired hunter Father Gascoigne. After several deaths at his hands or claws, I eventually bested the man-beast. I would not discover until later that I would be responsible for the eradication of his entire family. Gascoigne had left me surging with ego beyond simple hubris. My arrogance knew no bounds, and as I entered the cathedral area, I was craving more death. The hunt was becoming intoxicating.
I wish to do more violence.
But in my bloodlust, I made another mistake, this time wrongfully killing a potential ally. Not that I would understand this latest folly until much later either. A third bronzer popping, masking my monumental fuck-up. This new area was confusing and disorientating. I still hadn't got to grips with how to navigate the map or master the combat. The gun, mere fashion accessory on my belt. A dead weight still useless in my incapable hands. New enemies, giant priests towering over me, brain-sucking parasites stealing my insight, another mechanic in the game I was still utterly in the dark about. This new section of the map was much more intimidating than the last. This time I was constantly looking up a huge set of stairs, leading me to my next boss battle. The view from the bottom was as daunting as anything I'd seen so far. But as I journeyed upwards, something vitally useful clicked. Well, half clicked. The gun. How to use the goddamn gun. Confidence wavering, but a new understanding of how effective the pistol could truly be in staggering enemies to be viscerally attacked was a game changer. This made everything much, much simpler. But then I met her. What was once the good Vicar Amelia, now another victim of the blood's corruption, another emissary of hell I was to hunt and kill. But this one would push me to the brink of giving up, then kick me right over the edge. I tried so hard so many times, but Amelia would squash me like a bug, over and over and over again, like a perpetual loop of torment. I took an AI hunter companion with me, but they too felt the cold kiss of death at the feet of this gruesome giant. I was close to giving up. I was giving it my all, but making no progress. With a Hail Mary move, I decided there was one more thing I could try, summoning a human and AI hunter to assist me in the battle. Now, this was after a solid 40 or so attempts, and I stopped recording purely because, well, I truly stopped believing I could do it. Even with a couple of heavy hitters with me, I felt this boss was the end of my adventure. But together, the three of us managed to overcome and vanquish Amelia once and for all. I practiced using the gun to parry attacks and found the game far less intimidating. Barring a few irritating enemy types and being cornered, combat became much easier and took far less time to travel through areas. The only truly tricky spots of the story remaining were the bosses. Not Blood-Starved Beast, though, who I obliterated on my first attempt. He has since been dubbed the Blood-Starved Bitch. Finding smarter, quicker ways to grind blood echoes to level up and buy helpful consumables, I moved quicker, more assured. I also began to understand Insight a little better. It turned out that it did far more than simply bring in outside contractors to help me with brutal boss fights. The world changed the more insight I had, as if the more insight gained, the more of the truth of Yharnam revealed itself. After Rom, everything changed. The vacuous spider's departure led to the introduction of the Blood Moon. Amygdalas now climb the cathedral, the giant monstrosities seemingly everywhere I look. I refused to become distracted. I continue my hunt. Some areas were tougher than others, the swamp area being the worst for me in the whole game. Luckily, my stay here was relatively brief. Bosses fell at my hand one by one, or sometimes two by one, and once 3-on-1. The Shadows of Yharnam proving to be a rough battle with three enemies all having different abilities, but all able to attack up close or from a distance. Following Amelia, the toughest boss I was to find would be Mikolash, whose maze environment threw me completely for a loop, but I eventually prevailed, adding his corpse to the pile left in my wake. Leveled up and armed to the teeth, with a much clearer grasp of the combat mechanics, I flew through the remainder of the story, popping trophies for bosses, story progression, opening areas, and collectibles. The trophies piling up almost as high as the corpses until the final story mode boss, before the point of no return, Murgo's Wet Nurse. By this point, both my weapons and attributes were leveled up so that nothing easily outmuscled me. I was still very much the underdog, but now versed in the art of the hunt and imbued with powerful weapons that ripped through beasts that I now called prey. I'd be lying if I said the Wet Nurse posed little challenge. She was a glorious test of how much I had learned thus far. She proved to be the perfect foe to face before delving into the Chalice Dungeons. Using all the tricks and trinkets I had at my disposal, I made swift work of her. The Great One fell upon my hunter's axe, and I breathed in the sweet air of victory, peppered with the divine blood of Murgo's Wet Nurse. All that remained for the Platinum Trophy was a brief cleanup, the Chalice Dungeons, the multiple endings, and the weapons that would take me into at least the start of New Game Plus. Final upgrade on my trusty axe and the Weapon Master Silver was reward. Finding the last Hunter's tool gave me the first Goldie, the Hunter's Craft Trophy, and a Silvo for acquiring an extremely precious blood gem rounded off my short cleanup. There was no putting it off any longer. It was finally time to face the Chalice Dungeons. This trophy makes hunters shiver with terror, a series of unholy pits of despair, laid out the same as Yharnam, with progress being made by unlocking shortcuts to deeper areas. Each layer has a boss fight, which naturally progress in difficulty. Bosses from the story are brought back bigger, harder, scarier than ever before. Damage sponges to anything less than a fully leveled up weapon. The Defiled Dungeon being the most grueling, with it cutting your health in half and trapping you with these grim recreations of once beaten bosses. The dungeons took me 5 full, solid days. No rest, no break, no other games, no TV, no food, no marital relations, just dying over and over and over again until I finally unlocked the final dungeon and reached its bottom layer. The Thumerian Queen, Yharnam, who the city was named after. She was truly a challenge. Her range of attacks and pure speed were far too much for me. She bested me repeatedly as I clumsily tried to learn her attacks and timing. Each death felt like a step further away from the Platinum. After everything I had so far survived and beaten, it seemed I was destined to end here, a failure at the feet of Yharnam's first queen. The first half-dozen attempts, her doppelgangers make swift work of me, but I was slowly learning her moveset. I found a perfect point to stun her and do serious damage. I hadn't crossed off half her health in any attempt yet, but each time I respawned, I made sure to last a few seconds longer, deal out a few more points of damage. I was finally getting closer, nearing 20 attempts, but her health bar was closer to depletion than full at last. I was winning. Or losing less badly, I guess. Evening of the 5th day of attempts, and I was flailing around like a drunk slut in a bar near closing time, looking for some nookie. I was close to giving up for the night, but a dose of Red Bull and some loving words from my suffering wife, I went back for one more attempt. I ducked, I dived, I dodged, I parried, leaving her open to visceral attack. I shot blood vials into my veins as I took damage from her varying approaches. Her health gets below a third. My fingers shook, trembling with adrenaline fueled by Red Bull and an insatiable hunger for more death. No pause option in the FromSoft game. No way to take a quick break and compose myself. I just had to battle through and pray my ADHD would remain focused until the bitter end. I take one final swing and she falls. Yharnam, the Thumerian queen, is dead. The trophy pops. The controller drops to the floor. I collapse in a pool of goop on the sofa. My hunt was almost over, and now the platinum, although still not certain, was much more likely than before that goldie popped in the corner of my screen. Bloodborne has 3 endings. 2 are derived from the final choice you will make in the game upon returning to the hunter's dream for the final time. If you accept Gehrman's proposal at the game's climax, the story concludes with a whimper, a sad, bitter ending where no one truly wins. The second option, to refuse the offer, invokes a fantastic final boss fight with Gehrman himself. Tricky in spots, but compared to the Chalice Dungeons, piece of cake. Before finishing the trilogy of endings, I choose to move on to New Game Plus and collect the final weapon to earn me the Hunter's Essence Goldie. Bloodborne had thrown some of the greatest boss battles I've ever had, and I wanted to depart the game with one last glorious battle, as opposed to meaningless collectibles. I returned to my previous save and unleashed the game's true ending. Throughout the game, you will come across 3 or 4 thirds of umbilical cord. You must keep 3 of these and consume them directly before Gehrman asks you for your decision. Once you reject him, a new secret boss will emerge, and you'll have to vanquish them. The final true boss fight. Narratively, this battle was glorious, and its conclusion gave me what felt like the most victorious of endings for my dear hunter, Agron. The fight was visually stunning, but still nothing like the Chalice Dungeons. The only stifling issue with the boss was the numbing mist it cast, preventing me from healing. But like all the other monsters, corrupted hunters and great ones before it, the moon presence itself fell to my hunter's axe. The final Goldie explodes in the corner. The platinum follows quickly after. My road to Yharnam is over. My 100th platinum is the almighty Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a unique and brilliant game, arguably now my favourite game of all time. Its Lovecraftian Gothic Victorian London environment is truly fascinating. The enemies vary wildly and all offer different challenges. The map is at first confusing and overwhelming, but once you understand how it works, it becomes easier and easier to navigate. I give Bloodborne a 7 out of 10 difficulty. It goes in as a little bit spicy because honestly, it always felt doable throughout my playthrough, other than, Vicar Amelia, of course. The combat is hard to master, but when you do, everything slots beautifully into place. The steep learning curve is rough, but the game slowly introduces all the mechanics, so you have time to get to grips with everything in your own time. A perfect 10 out of 10 for fun. This story is not told in a conventional manner, and this can lead to deceiving you that not much is going on, but I assure you there is. Take note of every NPC's dialogue and put the full story together yourself. It's a wild ride. Thank you all so much for joining me on this incredible adventure. All of your support has been truly appreciated. I've loved every second of Bloodborne and my journey to it. I can't wait to jump into another Souls game. We hope you've enjoyed the series. I'm Zach. She's Crew. This is ZXL. Be good to each other.